In Thinking, Fast and Slow, I explored the fascinating dichotomy of the human mind, the effortless intuition of System 1 and the deliberate reasoning of System 2. Together, these systems guide our decisions, shape our perceptions, and determine our actions. Yet, even as we unraveled the mysteries of biases, heuristics, and the errors they lead to, new questions emerged. Questions that demand deeper exploration. Why do some cognitive illusions persist, even after we become aware of them? Is it possible to truly master our biases, or are we forever at their mercy? Can intuition ever be systematically trained to outperform deliberate reasoning, or is it always bound by the limits of experience and context? And then there is the broader question of influence. How much of our decision-making is truly ours? As technology increasingly shapes our environment and algorithms nudge us in unseen ways, are we losing control of our minds? In Part 1, we saw how predictable errors arise from overconfidence, loss aversion, and the anchoring effect. But what happens when these tendencies collide in high-stakes environments? How do leaders, investors, and policymakers navigate the intersection of intuition and rationality under immense pressure? This sequel aims to dive into the gaps left unexplored. Can we harness the insights from behavioral economics and cognitive psychology to build better systems, ones that protect us from our own worst tendencies? What role does emotion play in the architecture of decision-making? Are emotions truly the adversary of reason, or could they be an indispensable ally? Consider this. What if the key to better thinking lies not in suppressing our fast, intuitive System 1, but in aligning it with the deliberate power of System 2? Could we develop a System 3, a mode of thinking that combines the speed of intuition with the accuracy of reason? The questions are endless, but so are the possibilities. This journey is not just about understanding the mind, it's about equipping ourselves to think more clearly, decide more wisely, and act more intentionally in an increasingly complex world. But where does it all start? Well, let me explain. Chapter 1. Why even the smartest people make poor decisions. Have you ever wondered why even the brightest minds sometimes make questionable decisions? Intelligence is often seen as the golden ticket to success. But time and again, we see how even the smartest individuals can make mistakes. This paradox has puzzled experts for years. If being smart is the key to success, why do highly intelligent people sometimes fail to make the best choices? Let's imagine a scenario. A world-renowned scientist sticks stubbornly to a theory, despite new evidence contradicting it, or a successful CEO makes a reckless decision based purely on intuition. These are not just hypothetical situations. This is a reality many successful people face. The truth is, our thinking processes are far more complicated than we realize, and even the sharpest minds can fall victim to biases and flawed judgment. At the heart of this phenomenon lies the role of cognitive biases, systematic errors in our thinking that distort our decisions. These biases are not signs of stupidity, but shortcuts our brains take to process information quickly. While these mental shortcuts can help in everyday life, they can also lead us to make irrational decisions, especially when we aren't aware of their influence. One of the most dangerous cognitive biases that intelligent people fall prey to is the overconfidence bias. Successful individuals often develop an inflated sense of their own abilities, which leads them to overlook risks or ignore opposing viewpoints. This self-assurance can cause them to make reckless decisions, disregarding critical feedback and potentially missing out on key information. A closely related bias is the Dunning-Kruger effect, a phenomenon where people with limited knowledge or expertise in a particular area overestimate their skills. But what's really surprising is that even highly intelligent people, experts in one domain, can fall victim to this bias when they enter a new field. For example, a brilliant physicist might mistakenly think they can easily master financial investing, only to make disastrous decisions because they lack the necessary knowledge of the market. Then there are heuristics, mental shortcuts, that help us make decisions quickly and efficiently. While they're incredibly useful in many situations, they can backfire when applied to complex problems. For instance, the availability heuristic leads us to overestimate the likelihood of an event based on how easily we can recall similar examples. After hearing about a plane crash, we might irrationally overestimate the danger of flying, even though statistics show air travel is far safer than other modes of transportation. Another common heuristic is the anchoring effect, the tendency to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter, even if it's irrelevant or misleading. For example, in a negotiation, the first number mentioned often sets a mental anchor that influences the final agreement, regardless of how reasonable or fair the initial offer actually was. Emotional intelligence, EQ, is just as important as intellectual intelligence, IQ, when it comes to decision-making. While many smart people excel in analytical thinking, they may struggle to understand and regulate their emotions. This imbalance can lead to decisions that appear rational on the surface, but fail to account for human factors or personal values. Emotions often play a bigger role in our decisions than we realize. Fear can lead us to make overly cautious choices, while excitement might cause us to overlook risks. Self-awareness is crucial for better decision-making. Recognizing our biases, emotional triggers, and thinking patterns allows us to make more informed choices. Achieving self-awareness is a constant process that requires reflection and practice. Yet, even with heightened awareness, there are blind spots in our thinking. Areas where our judgment is clouded by personal experiences, cultural background, and deeply held beliefs. These blind spots can cause us to misinterpret information or ignore facts that don't align with our preconceived notions. How do we overcome these challenges? It all begins with intellectual humility, the understanding that our knowledge and abilities have limits. By embracing this humility, we open ourselves up to continuous learning and improvement. Acknowledging our flaws and biases is the first step toward becoming better decision-makers. Ultimately, intelligence alone isn't enough to guarantee wise decisions. Cognitive biases, mental shortcuts, emotional factors, and blind spots all influence the choices we make. The key to better decision-making lies not in eliminating these influences, but in understanding and managing them. By embracing a mindset of humility and constant growth, we can harness our intelligence more effectively. In the chapters ahead, we'll explore specific strategies for recognizing and managing these cognitive pitfalls. You'll learn how to balance emotion with reason and how to sharpen your critical thinking skills. Our goal isn't to eliminate all biases or to make perfect decisions, because perfection is impossible. Rather, the aim is to become more aware of our thought processes, challenge our assumptions, and be open to different perspectives. This approach will empower us to make smarter, more informed choices that align with our true goals and values. As we turn to the next chapter, we'll dive into the powerful role emotions play in decision-making. You'll see how even the most logical minds can be swayed by feelings, and discover strategies to use emotional intelligence for better outcomes. The journey toward smarter decision-making is just beginning, and the insights ahead promise to transform the way you approach choices in all areas of life. So, are you ready to confront your own biases and improve your decision-making skills? If so, don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications so you can continue this journey with us. And remember to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It helps the channel grow and spread the message of smarter, more thoughtful decision-making. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2. The Emotional Power Behind Decision-Making. Have you ever made a quick decision, only to look back later and regret it? Or perhaps you felt so sure about something, yet couldn't quite explain why. Was it intuition or emotion guiding you? You're not alone. We often pride ourselves on being logical, carefully weighing every option before acting. But the truth is far more fascinating. Our decisions aren't driven solely by reason and logic. They're heavily influenced by something much more powerful and often unnoticed: our emotions. These invisible forces shape our choices, sometimes in ways we can't fully understand, leading us to act in ways we might later question. So why is this so important? The impact of our emotions on decision-making stretches into every part of life, from personal relationships to our careers. Once we understand how deeply emotions affect us, we can start making more thoughtful choices that truly align with our goals. Picture a moment when you're at a crossroads, facing a big decision. You've gathered all the facts, analyzed the options, and then there's a pull, an emotional one, that tells you to go in a completely different direction. Which path do you choose? It's not always clear, but that's where the interaction between emotion and reason gets really interesting. Emotions aren't just passing feelings. They have the power to overtake even the most rational thoughts. Think of a time when, logically, you knew something was the right choice, but something just didn't sit right with you. That's your emotional brain taking the lead. It's not always wrong either. Emotions can provide valuable insights from our past experiences, and sometimes they help us make quick, accurate decisions. But there are moments when emotions can lead us down the wrong path, causing us to act impulsively and regret it later. The real challenge is figuring out when to trust our emotions and when to step back and engage our rational mind. To understand this better, we need to dive into a fascinating concept from cognitive science: the dual process theory. This theory suggests that our brain uses two different systems to think and make decisions. The first system, called System 1, is quick, automatic, and heavily influenced by emotion. This is the system we use when we make snap decisions or respond instinctively to situations. For example, when you suddenly avoid an obstacle while driving, or when you just know something is right or wrong, that's System 1 at work. On the other hand, System 2 is the slower, more deliberate part of our brain. It's what we use when we're solving complex problems, thinking through big decisions, or analyzing data. It's less emotional and more logical, but it also takes more energy and focus to engage. Here's the key: emotions are mainly driven by System 1. So, when we're in an emotional state, this fast-thinking system is often in charge, leading to decisions that may be too hasty or not well thought through. This is where something called emotional hijacking comes into play. When our emotions take over, they can drown out the logical side of our thinking. You might find yourself acting on impulse, perhaps saying something you don't mean, or making a decision you regret. But what causes these emotional reactions? Common triggers like fear, anxiety, and excitement can throw us off balance. Fear and anxiety may make us avoid risks, missing out on good opportunities, while excitement can blind us to potential dangers, leading to reckless choices. So, how do we stop ourselves from being emotionally hijacked? The first step is to recognize when it's happening. Pay attention to physical cues, like a racing heart, shallow breathing, or a tense feeling in your body. These can signal that emotions are taking control. Mentally, you might notice that your thoughts are becoming more extreme or less coherent. When this happens, take a moment to pause. Give yourself a break to allow your System 2 to kick in and think things through before making any big decisions. The consequences of emotional decisions can be significant. In personal relationships, they may lead to saying hurtful things or acting out of frustration. In the workplace, emotional decisions might mean missed opportunities or poor choices that impact long-term success. But don't worry. There are ways to better manage your emotions and make decisions that serve you well. Mindfulness and being aware of the present moment is a powerful tool. When you're mindful, you can pause before reacting and create space between your emotions and your actions, making room for better decision-making. Another helpful strategy is cognitive reframing. This means changing how you view a situation to shift your emotional response. For instance, instead of seeing a challenging situation as a threat, Try viewing it as an opportunity to grow. This shift in perspective can help calm your emotional response and lead to clearer, more logical decisions. The key to effective decision-making isn't about ignoring emotions, it's about finding a balance between them and reason. This is where emotional intelligence comes into play. It's the ability to recognize, understand, and manage both your emotions and the emotions of others, using that awareness to guide your decisions. One technique that can help is called the emotion-reason bridge. This involves acknowledging your emotional reaction to a situation, but then deliberately engaging your analytical side to consider the facts. By creating this bridge between emotions and reason, you can make decisions that integrate both emotional insight and logical thinking. There are simple exercises you can do to strengthen your emotional decision-making. Try keeping a decision journal where you record not only the choices you make, but also the emotions you felt at the time. This can help you spot patterns in how your emotions influence your decisions. Another great practice is mindfulness meditation. Even just a few minutes a day can help you become more aware of your emotional states, giving you the tools to regulate them better. So, what changes can you expect as you work on developing these skills? The most immediate benefit is likely a greater awareness of how emotions shape your decisions. Just becoming aware of this can give you the power to pause and reflect before acting. Over time, you'll develop the ability to regulate your emotions, allowing for better, more balanced choices. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions, but rather managing them so that your thinking remains clear and your decisions are more aligned with your goals. The ultimate goal is to make decisions that feel right on both an emotional and rational level. Finding this balance can lead to choices that align not only with your logical mind, but also with your deeper values and instincts. But this journey isn't always easy. One of the biggest obstacles is recognizing when emotions are biasing our thinking. We often don't realize just how much our feelings are influencing us. The solution lies in self-reflection. Take time each day to check in with your emotional state and examine how it might be affecting your decisions. Another pitfall is the tendency to rely too heavily on either emotions or logic. Some people dismiss their feelings altogether and focus only on facts, while others make decisions purely based on how they feel at the moment. The goal is to integrate both emotions and reason, considering them together as part of a thoughtful decision-making process. As we wrap up this exploration of emotional decision-making, it's clear that emotions play a larger role in our choices than we often recognize. By understanding the dynamics of our intuitive and analytical thinking systems, identifying emotional triggers, and practicing emotional regulation techniques, we can make better decisions, ones that are both logical and deeply fulfilling. In the next chapter, we'll dive into another fascinating cognitive tendency, one that can cause even the most rational people to see things through a skewed lens. Are you ready to explore the biases that may be subtly influencing your judgments and decisions? Stay tuned. Chapter 3. Confirmation Bias, the subtle trap of our own minds. Have you ever been so sure of your stance in an argument, only to later realize that you might have missed some key details? Or maybe you've noticed someone clinging to their beliefs, even when faced with solid evidence that contradicts them? This isn't just stubbornness or a lack of intelligence. It's a deep-rooted cognitive tendency that shapes our thoughts, decisions, and perceptions in ways we're often unaware of. It's a blind spot we all share, a force that drives us to see the world in a way that aligns with our existing beliefs. And when we fall into its grasp, it can lead us down the wrong path. At the heart of this issue is confirmation bias, our natural inclination to search for, interpret, and remember information in a way that supports what we already believe. This unconscious bias filters out conflicting information, creating a reality that feels comfortable but may not reflect the truth. The scary part? Confirmation bias can cloud the judgment of anyone, whether they're a scientist, a business leader, or just someone trying to make a decision about their daily life. Think about it for a moment. When we make decisions, We often pride ourselves on being objective, logical thinkers, right? We like to believe we're carefully evaluating all the facts. But what if, instead of being objective, our minds are secretly playing tricks on us? What if we're unknowingly filtering the information we encounter, letting in only the facts that confirm what we already think? This chapter digs deep into this powerful mental trap and shows how it can affect the best of us. The power of confirmation bias. Imagine you're convinced that a particular investment is a great idea. You start looking up information, and sure enough, you find articles that praise it and tell you it's a sure bet. You may feel reassured, even though you've ignored warnings about potential risks. This selective gathering of information is one of the key ways confirmation bias works. It causes us to look for evidence that backs up our beliefs, rather than challenging them. But confirmation bias doesn't stop there. It also affects how we interpret information. When faced with ambiguous data, something that could be seen in different ways, we tend to interpret it in a way that fits our existing views. For example, you might read a report with mixed signals and choose to believe the part that aligns with your opinion, even though the report as a whole is more complex. This can lead to a distorted perception of reality, where we see patterns that aren't actually there. As you can imagine, this can have serious consequences. By strengthening our pre-existing beliefs, confirmation bias can create a kind of mental inertia. The more we rely on information that aligns with our views, the harder it becomes to change our minds, even when faced with clear, contradicting evidence. This is where the trouble begins. Whether we're making business decisions, political judgments, or personal choices, confirmation bias can blind us to important facts, steering us towards poor outcomes. Identifying confirmation bias in ourselves. How do we recognize confirmation bias when it's happening? The first step is to be honest with ourselves. Reflect on your most strongly held beliefs. How did you form these opinions? What evidence are you relying on to support them? Have you actively sought out information that challenges these views? Or do you only listen to sources that reinforce them? Pay attention to your emotional reactions. When you come across information that contradicts what you believe, do you feel a strong urge to dismiss it outright? These feelings of defensiveness or irritation are clues that confirmation bias is at play. Another useful step is to observe your information sources. Do you tend to visit the same websites, watch the same news channels, or follow the same social media accounts that always align with your views? If so, this can further reinforce your biases, making it harder to see things from a different perspective. Challenging our biases. So, how do we break free from confirmation bias? It starts with conscious effort. One effective strategy is to actively seek out opposing viewpoints. This can be uncomfortable. No one likes having their beliefs challenged, but it's crucial for developing a more well-rounded perspective. Don't just look for information that supports your stance. Make it a habit to look for the other side as well. Ask yourself tough questions about the evidence you're encountering. What are the potential weaknesses in these arguments? Could there be another interpretation? What alternative explanations might exist? Another powerful tool in overcoming confirmation bias is structured thinking. This means consciously organizing your decision-making process so that you consider multiple perspectives. For example, you could take on the role of devil's advocate, deliberately arguing against your own position, even if you don't agree with it. This forces you to see your decisions from different angles and helps uncover blind spots in your reasoning. A call for open-mindedness. Building a habit of critical thinking can help us avoid the traps of confirmation bias. Regularly exposing yourself to opposing views and being open to them doesn't mean you have to abandon your beliefs. Instead, it ensures that your views are grounded in facts and a comprehensive understanding of the issue. It's about ensuring that your decisions are informed by a balanced assessment of all available information, not just the parts that align with your existing opinions. But even when we work to overcome confirmation bias, it's not always easy. There will still be moments when we feel a strong emotional pull towards information that confirms what we already believe. And in those moments, we have a choice. Do we let our biases guide us, or do we take a step back and treat this as an opportunity to grow? Developing the habit of open-mindedness, viewing contradictory information as a chance to learn rather than as a threat, is essential in this process. It's also important not to go too far in the opposite direction. Overcompensating for confirmation bias can lead us to become overly skeptical or paralyzed by indecision. Instead, aim to develop clear criteria for evaluating information. This way, you can critically assess facts without falling into the trap of doubting everything or avoiding conclusions altogether. The benefits of overcoming confirmation bias. By actively confronting confirmation bias, we can become more self-aware of our biases, which is the first step toward better decision-making. With time, we can develop a more objective approach to evaluating information, considering all the facts, weighing different viewpoints, and coming to conclusions based on a comprehensive view of the evidence. This will not only help us make smarter, more informed decisions, but it will also allow us to grow and adapt when new information comes our way. In the end, the goal isn't to rid ourselves of all biases. That's likely impossible. The key is to recognize when biases are influencing us and to actively work toward a more balanced, thoughtful approach to decision-making. Looking ahead. As we wrap up this chapter on confirmation bias, we've explored just one of the many cognitive biases that shape our decisions and perceptions. But there's another fascinating phenomenon that can stop us in our tracks. One that often keeps us stuck in a loop of endless deliberation. It's when our pursuit of perfection becomes our greatest obstacle. In the next chapter, we'll explore how the drive for perfection can paralyze us, and why sometimes less can be more when it comes to making smart, effective choices. Chapter 4. Breaking Free from the Chains of Overthinking. Have you ever been stuck in a mental loop, endlessly analyzing your options, yet finding yourself no closer to a decision? You might have all the information you need right in front of you, but for some reason, taking action feels impossible. If this sounds all too familiar, you're not alone. The desire to make the perfect choice often locks us in a trap where indecision becomes just as harmful as rushing into a decision. In today's world, we're drowning in information. The internet has given us access to an overwhelming sea of data, and we're often told that knowledge equals power. But what happens when the very tools we use to make better choices end up paralyzing us instead? The more options we have, the harder it can be to choose. This chapter will explore how the flood of information can leave us overwhelmed and stuck, paralyzed by the very thing meant to help us. But why does this happen? The paradox is simple. In theory, more information should lead to better decisions, right? After all, the more you know, the more informed you should be. But, as often happens, too much information doesn't make us smarter. It makes us stuck. This is what's known as analysis paralysis, a state in which you become so consumed by overthinking that making any decision seems impossible. The paradox of choice. Too much of a good thing. Why is it so hard to choose, even when we have endless information? You've probably experienced that feeling of being overwhelmed by options, too many, and they all seem important. While having choices is generally seen as a good thing, the truth is, the more options you have, the harder it can be to make a decision. This is what psychologists call the paradox of choice. The idea that an abundance of choices can lead to anxiety, indecision, and even dissatisfaction with the choice you ultimately make. But what's the real cost of indecision? At its core, it's more than just wasted time. It's missed opportunities. When we get stuck in the cycle of analyzing every possibility, we delay action and risk passing up valuable chances. But it's not just about missing out. Overthinking can also lead to mental exhaustion and stress, creating a kind of decision fatigue where your brain gets worn out from constantly deciding, causing you to make poor choices in unrelated areas of your life. So, what can we do to break free from this paralysis and become more decisive? The first step is understanding the causes of analysis paralysis. If you're constantly searching for more information, even when you've gathered enough, or if you find yourself replaying the same arguments over and over without reaching a conclusion, you may be trapped in this cycle. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward taking control. The fear of making the wrong choice. One of the biggest reasons we fall into this trap is fear. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear of being judged for our decisions. Fear of missing out. This fear drives us to gather more and more information, hoping that one last piece of data will provide the clarity we need. The problem is that perfect piece of information rarely comes, and the longer we search, the deeper we get stuck in analysis. How to overcome the paralysis. A roadmap for decision-making. So, how do we escape this mental trap? First, it's crucial to set clear objectives. When you know exactly what you want to achieve with your decision, it becomes easier to focus only on the relevant information. By defining your goal, you can avoid getting distracted by less important details. Another powerful strategy is limiting the information you take in. This doesn't mean making uninformed decisions, but rather being selective. Not all information is created equal, and learning to identify the most important pieces is key to speeding up your decision-making. The 80-20 principle, also known as Pareto's Law, offers another useful tool. It suggests that 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts. When it comes to decision-making, this means focusing on the few key factors that will truly make a difference, instead of getting bogged down in every little detail. Time boxing, setting a strict deadline for making a decision, can also help break the cycle of endless deliberation. By forcing yourself to decide within a specific time frame, you prevent yourself from going down an infinite rabbit hole of analysis. Breaking down complex decisions. When faced with particularly complicated decisions, try breaking them down into smaller, more manageable parts. This will allow you to focus on one piece at a time, rather than feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of the entire decision. Similarly, prioritize what really matters. What factors are most important to you? What can you afford to overlook? Answering these questions can help you stay focused and clear-headed as you decide. Practice makes perfect, strengthening your decision-making muscles. Like any skill, decision-making improves with practice. Try setting a timer to make decisions quickly. This can help you get comfortable with making choices without waiting for the perfect moment. Another useful exercise is to rank the factors that matter most to you. By clarifying what's essential and what's less important, you can sharpen your focus and make more confident decisions. As you apply these techniques, you might be wondering, what benefits can you expect? At first, the most obvious result will be faster decision-making, but with continued practice, you'll also notice greater confidence in your ability to make informed choices, even when the situation feels complicated. This doesn't mean making rash decisions. It means learning to trust your ability to evaluate the key factors and move forward decisively. Striking the right balance. The goal isn't to make perfect decisions because perfect decisions don't exist. Life is full of uncertainty and complexities, and sometimes no choice will be entirely right. Instead, aim for good decisions, choices that are informed but made in a timely manner. The key is balancing speed and accuracy. Take enough time to consider the important aspects, but don't get stuck in the search for the perfect answer. One common pitfall is swinging too far in the opposite direction, rushing into decisions without giving them enough thought. The key to avoiding this is having a process that helps you analyze decisions thoroughly but efficiently. Also, remember that simplicity doesn't always mean sacrificing quality. Establish clear criteria for what constitutes essential information for each decision. This will ensure you're not simplifying to the point of neglecting crucial details. The takeaway: move forward, even imperfectly. As we close this chapter, it's clear that the problem isn't a lack of information. It's our inability to process and act on it effectively. By understanding what causes analysis paralysis and learning how to manage it, we can make smarter, quicker decisions. The goal isn't to make perfect choices every time. It's to make good decisions with confidence and to move forward with less hesitation. This way, we can avoid the trap of overthinking and take action that drives us toward success. Ready to explore more? In the next chapter, we'll dive into how our brains naturally search for patterns, often finding meaning where none exists. How does this affect our perceptions and, more importantly, our decisions? Are you prepared to see the world differently? Chapter 5: False Pattern Recognition. Unraveling the mystery behind our mind's illusions. Have you ever gazed at clouds and seen shapes of animals, or perhaps felt that a streak of good luck was bound to continue? If so, you're not alone. These experiences reveal a fascinating quirk of the human mind, our incredible ability to spot patterns. This skill has been vital for survival throughout human history, helping our ancestors identify threats, locate food, and navigate social landscapes. But what happens when this powerful tool tricks us? What if the patterns we see don't exist at all? In this chapter, we dive into a mental trickery that influences every part of our lives, from the small decisions we make daily to our grandest beliefs. It's the tendency to see connections and order in things that may actually be random. But what drives this? And why does it happen? Let's start by considering our brain's knack for pattern recognition. Think back to our evolutionary roots. Early humans who could spot patterns, like identifying the rustle of leaves as a predator approaching or recognizing which fruits were safe to eat, had a better chance of surviving. Over time, this ability became hardwired into our minds. But now, in a world filled with complexity, we sometimes mistake random events for meaningful patterns. Whether it's trying to predict stock market trends or feeling that a few coincidences are more than chance, our minds can deceive us into believing connections that aren't there. This is what we call false pattern recognition. Why should we care about this? In an era dominated by information overload, the ability to separate real patterns from random noise is more important than ever. Misinterpreting patterns can lead to costly mistakes, whether in finance, business, or even personal beliefs. With vast amounts of data at our fingertips, understanding how to identify true correlations is critical. False pattern recognition can push us toward misguided decisions and reinforce erroneous beliefs. So, how do we fall into this trap? One key concept is apophenia, which refers to the tendency to perceive meaningful patterns where none exist. Patternicity, a term coined by historian Michael Shermer, describes our drive to find patterns in both meaningful and meaningless data. This urge stems from our brain's deep need for order and meaning. When faced with uncertainty or randomness, our minds naturally try to impose structure, even if it's not really there. This serves us well in many situations, but it can also mislead us, making us see things that don't exist. Several cognitive biases feed into false pattern recognition. For instance, confirmation bias can cause us to notice and remember information that supports patterns we already believe in, while ignoring contradictory evidence. The gambler's fallacy is another sneaky culprit. This is the belief that after a series of bad luck, a win is due, even though each event is independent. And then there's illusory correlation, where we perceive a relationship between two variables simply because they occur together, even when there's no actual connection. The consequences of these false patterns can be profound. In business, they may lead to poor strategies based on misunderstood market trends. In personal finance, they can fuel misguided investments when people mistakenly read into stock fluctuations as meaningful predictions. On a larger scale, false pattern recognition can even contribute to the persistence of superstitions and pseudoscientific beliefs. When we see patterns in random events, we often assign meaning to them, influencing our behavior in ways that don't make sense. So how can we protect ourselves from this cognitive trap? One way is to build statistical literacy, the ability to understand data and critically evaluate what we see. By learning to distinguish between real patterns and random noise, we can avoid the pitfalls of false pattern recognition. And it's not just about understanding numbers, it's about seeking empirical evidence and verification. Instead of trusting our gut feelings about patterns, we should search for concrete proof. This might mean conducting experiments, analyzing larger data sets, or consulting experts. Another useful strategy is to question our initial impressions. When we think we've identified a pattern, ask yourself, is this truly a pattern, or is it just a coincidence? What hard evidence do I have to support this idea? Analytical tools, like statistical methods, can also help us sharpen our pattern recognition skills. These tools allow us to assess whether a pattern is significant or simply a random occurrence. There are also practical exercises that can help train our minds. Try analyzing random datasets for hidden patterns. By doing this, you can practice spotting when you're trying to impose structure on random information. Another valuable exercise is distinguishing correlation from causation, recognizing when two variables are linked, but one doesn't cause the other. As you practice these skills, you might start noticing something powerful, a heightened awareness of false pattern recognition in your own life. You'll learn to see when you or others might be mistaking coincidence for causality. Over time, you'll develop the tools to critically evaluate perceived patterns, turning you into a more discerning decision-maker. The goal isn't to dismiss patterns altogether, but to refine your instincts. By pairing intuitive pattern recognition with careful critical thinking and evidence, we can make better decisions and avoid unnecessary mistakes. That said, there are challenges ahead. One potential risk is that in trying to avoid false patterns, you might overlook real ones. The key here is to balance caution with open-mindedness. Relying on statistical rigor rather than intuition will help ensure that we don't dismiss genuine patterns simply because we're wary of false ones. Another risk is the danger of becoming too skeptical, rejecting all patterns as potential fallacies. The goal is not to shut down pattern recognition, but to approach it with a sharp, evidence-based eye. As we wrap up this chapter on false pattern recognition, we see that while our brain's natural tendency to find patterns has been essential to our survival, it can sometimes lead us astray in the modern world. By understanding this aspect of our cognition and sharpening our skills in evaluating data, we can make more informed choices. This doesn't mean ignoring patterns, but refining our approach to use them wisely. So, what's next? In the upcoming chapter, we'll dive into another fascinating aspect of human decision-making, one that explores how our need for belonging can influence our thoughts and choices. Are you ready to challenge the power of the crowd over your own judgment? Let's find out together. Chapter 6. The Pitfalls of Group Thinking. Have you ever found yourself going along with a group decision, even though something didn't quite sit right? Or perhaps you've been part of a team that seemed unstoppable, only to look back later and realize you'd collectively made a serious mistake. Sound familiar? These situations are more common than we think, and they reveal a powerful, yet often overlooked aspect of human behavior that can deeply influence our decisions. When we're in a group, we often see it as a source of strength and wisdom. After all, don't we believe that two heads are better than one? Isn't collaboration the key to success? While these beliefs aren't unfounded, there's a darker side to group dynamics that can lead us astray in ways we don't even realize. This chapter dives deep into a phenomenon that affects teams, organizations, and even entire societies, often in ways that operate beneath our awareness. But what exactly is this hidden force that can turn the collective strength of a group into a weakness? The answer lies in understanding the delicate balance between harmony and critical thinking in group settings. What happens when the need for consensus clouds our better judgment? What happens when the desire to belong overrides individual analysis? These forces can lead us to make decisions that no single member of the group would have made on their own. To truly grasp this, we need to dive into a concept called groupthink, a term coined by social psychologist Irving Janis. Groupthink, the hidden danger of consensus. Groupthink is a psychological phenomenon where the desire for harmony and conformity in a group leads to irrational or dysfunctional decision-making. It happens when the need for consensus overrides the need for critical evaluation of alternative ideas. In a group affected by groupthink, keeping things smooth and unified becomes more important than making the best decision. As a result, members may suppress their doubts or concerns just to avoid disrupting the perceived agreement. How often have you bitten your tongue to avoid rocking the boat? The hallmark of a groupthink scenario is the suppression of critical thought. In a healthy group, differing perspectives and constructive disagreement help produce stronger decisions. However, when groupthink takes hold, dissenting voices are often stifled, sometimes through direct pressure, other times through more subtle social cues. The result? Poor decisions that don't reflect the full spectrum of ideas. One of the most prominent symptoms of groupthink is the illusion of invulnerability. In such groups, there's a shared belief that nothing can go wrong, leading to overly optimistic and risky decisions. This overconfidence can create a sense of security that blurs our ability to see potential dangers. Another red flag is rationalizing warnings. When faced with evidence that contradicts the group's consensus, members often dismiss or explain away these concerns. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that those who disagree simply don't understand the bigger picture. But what happens when we ignore the warning signs? The pressure to conform is another major symptom. This can manifest as direct pressure on dissenters to align with the group's opinion, or, more subtly, as self-censorship, where individuals hold back their doubts for fear of being seen as disloyal or disruptive. Ever held back your thoughts just to fit in? Why does groupthink happen? To understand how groupthink takes root, it's important to look at the conditions that foster it. One major factor is the homogeneity of the group. When everyone shares similar backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences, there's little room for opposing viewpoints to challenge the status quo. This echo chamber effect can be a breeding ground for groupthink. Another contributor is directive leadership. When a leader strongly asserts their opinion at the start of a discussion, it can discourage group members from voicing their dissenting thoughts. It shifts the focus from critical evaluation to merely affirming the leader's views. Have you ever been in a meeting where the leader's opinion set the tone, making it hard to voice alternatives? A lack of structured decision-making processes also paves the way for groupthink. Without a clear, systematic method for evaluating ideas, groups are more likely to rush into decisions that feel safe, rather than thoroughly assessing all the options. In these situations, consensus becomes the goal, not the best decision. The consequences: catastrophe in the making. The fallout from groupthink can be severe. At best, it leads to suboptimal decisions that fail to take all factors into account. At worst, it can result in disastrous outcomes, especially when the stakes are high. By ignoring dissent and critical feedback, a group can blind itself to potential risks, charging ahead with confidence while ignoring the signs of impending failure. Think of historical disasters, corporate collapses, and political missteps, all often rooted in unchecked groupthink. Even more dangerously, groupthink can lead to ethical oversights. When the group is unified in its goals, it may rationalize unethical actions or overlook moral concerns in its pursuit of success. Decisions that violate legal or ethical standards can be swept under the rug in the name of group harmony. Preventing groupthink. How to foster healthier group dynamics. So, how can we prevent the traps of groupthink and ensure healthier group dynamics? One key strategy is to encourage open dialogue. This means creating a space where all opinions, especially dissenting ones, are valued. Critical thinking should be celebrated, not stifled. Leaders can set the tone by making it clear that constructive disagreement is not just tolerated, but actively encouraged. Assigning roles like a devil's advocate is another effective tool. In this scenario, someone is explicitly tasked with challenging the group's assumptions and ideas, even if it goes against their own beliefs. This ensures that no one rushes into consensus without critically examining all the alternatives. Another great way to counter groupthink is by seeking external perspectives. Bringing in outsiders, whether they're experts or individuals with different backgrounds, can help break the echo chamber effect and provide fresh, unbiased viewpoints. Ever noticed how a fresh set of eyes can often spot what the group overlooks? But it's not just about preventing groupthink. It's about fostering a culture that values diversity of thought. When people feel free to share their unique perspectives, the group benefits from a more well-rounded decision-making process. Encouraging a healthy norm for constructive criticism is also crucial. Teaching teams how to give and receive feedback in a respectful, productive way is a key skill for better collaboration. Cultivating better group dynamics. Small steps for big impact. How do we make these practices stick? It starts with small exercises that reinforce healthy group dynamics. For example, having group members debate different viewpoints in sub-teams can help them practice critical thinking and challenge assumptions. Another useful exercise is teaching better team communication skills, such as active listening, asking probing questions, and giving constructive feedback. These skills lay the foundation for more productive, open discussions. As groups continue to improve, what results can they expect? First, heightened awareness of groupthink. When team members recognize its symptoms, they're better equipped to spot it before it takes hold. Over time, the group will develop the ability to engage in healthy, open dialogue, actively seeking diverse viewpoints and integrating them into decision-making. The goal is not perfect consensus on every issue, but rather decisions that are well-reasoned and thoroughly debated. The aim is to avoid quick agreement in favor of thoughtful evaluation, ensuring that all relevant perspectives are considered. Breaking through resistance. There will be challenges along the way. Resistance to diverse opinions can be strong, especially in groups with a deep-rooted culture. The key is fostering an inclusive culture where differences of opinion are celebrated, not suppressed. Another obstacle is the dominance of strong personalities, which can overshadow quieter voices. To combat this, structured participation techniques can ensure that everyone has an equal opportunity to contribute. In conclusion, while groups have the potential to harness collective wisdom, they also carry the risk of collective error. By understanding groupthink and putting strategies in place to promote healthy group dynamics, we can harness the true power of collaboration while avoiding its pitfalls. The goal isn't constant disagreement. It's ensuring that decisions are made thoughtfully, with critical thinking and a diversity of perspectives at the heart of the process. As we move forward, we'll dive into another crucial aspect of decision-making that can radically shift how we make choices. It's a tool that promises to bring clarity and structure to the toughest decisions. Are you ready to discover a method that could transform the way you approach even the most complex decisions? Stay tuned for the next chapter. Chapter 7. The Smart Decision Framework. Have you ever been stuck at a crossroads, staring at multiple paths, unsure which one will lead to the best outcome? We've all been there, feeling the weight of decisions that seem too complex to tackle, and facing the frustration of choices that, in hindsight, weren't the right ones. But what if there was a way to approach these choices with clarity, confidence, and a proven strategy? Every day, we make countless decisions, both big and small. Yet many of us rely on gut feelings, past experiences, or the opinions of others without giving the decision-making process the attention it deserves. What if we could approach every decision with a clearer, more systematic framework? A framework that helps us navigate the maze of complexity and find our way forward with greater ease and assurance. This chapter introduces a smart decision framework, an approach that blends structure with practicality, offering a way to make decisions that are not only informed but also effective. It's not about overthinking or solely trusting your gut. It's about finding a middle ground where careful evaluation meets decisive action. And in today's world, where decisions can have far-reaching consequences, having a framework to guide us can be a game changer. It's about consistency, clarity, and making decisions with confidence, knowing we've thought them through thoroughly. But what exactly does this framework look like? Imagine a series of steps that guide you from recognizing the problem to implementing your decision. It's not a rigid set of rules. It's a flexible guide that can be customized for every unique situation. Why does it matter? A structured approach helps us avoid common mistakes, like rushing decisions or overlooking key details. It provides a clear path when we're faced with conflicting priorities, and, perhaps most importantly, it boosts our confidence. When we know we've analyzed the situation thoroughly, we can make decisions that feel right, not just in the moment, but also in the long run. So, how can we start? Let's break down the steps in this framework, starting with the very first one. Step 1. Define the problem or opportunity. Have you ever jumped into a decision only to later realize that you didn't fully understand the problem? The first step in the decision-making process is to clarify what you're actually dealing with. It's easy to get distracted by surface-level symptoms, but the key is digging deeper. Ask yourself, what's the real issue here? Are you addressing the root cause or just a symptom? What's driving this situation? Understanding the underlying problem is the first step toward a smart decision. Once you've defined the problem, set clear objectives. What do you hope to achieve? What would success look like? These objectives will serve as your compass, helping you measure options against what really matters. Step 2. Gather and analyze relevant information. With a clear understanding of the problem, it's time to gather the information needed to make an informed decision. But be cautious. Not all information is created equal. In today's world, we're overwhelmed with data, but the key is quality, not quantity. Are the sources reliable? Is the information up to date? Does it speak directly to the situation at hand? It's easy to fall into the trap of gathering as much data as possible, but focusing on what's most relevant and reliable will ensure your decision is based on solid ground. Step 3. Generate alternative solutions. Now comes the fun part, brainstorming. With the problem defined and the relevant information in hand, it's time to think creatively. The goal here is to generate multiple solutions. Don't settle for the first idea that pops into your head. Sometimes, the best solutions come from unexpected sources. Encourage free thinking during this step. Let your mind wander beyond the conventional and temporarily suspend judgment. You'll be surprised at the ideas that emerge when you allow yourself to think outside the box. Step 4. Evaluate options systematically. Now that you have a variety of options, it's time to evaluate them carefully. This is where structure becomes key. You need to weigh each option based on clear criteria that reflect your goals. What factors matter most in this decision? How do the options compare when evaluated from different angles? Tools like a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, can help break down each alternative, giving you a clearer picture of what you're working with. This stage ensures that you're not just choosing based on gut instinct, but based on a thorough assessment of each option's potential. Step 5. Make the decision. After evaluating the options, you're at the critical juncture. It's time to make a choice. But remember, there is no such thing as a perfect decision. What you're aiming for is the best possible choice, given the information you have. Consider both short-term and long-term effects, and be ready to commit to your decision with confidence. Step 6. Implement the decision. Making the decision is just the beginning. The real work begins with putting the plan into action. This step involves creating a concrete strategy for execution, assigning resources, and ensuring responsibilities are clear. After all, a great decision is only as valuable as its execution. Step 7. Monitor and review the outcomes. The final step is to track the results. This means keeping an eye on how the decision plays out and being flexible enough to adapt if things don't go as expected. Are the outcomes aligning with your goals? If not, it's time to course correct. Applying the framework. So, how do you make this framework a part of your life? Start small. Begin by applying it to everyday decisions. Nothing too big, but enough to get comfortable with the process. As you gain experience, try using it for more complex decisions. And if you're in a leadership role, try simulating decision-making scenarios to refine your approach. What can you expect? By using this framework, you'll find that decision-making becomes less stressful and more methodical. You'll be able to tackle even complicated situations with greater clarity, breaking them down into manageable pieces. The more you practice, the quicker and more intuitive the framework will become. The goal isn't to make perfect decisions, but to make the best decisions possible, given the resources you have. And over time, you'll notice the quality of your choices improving. Whether it's personal or professional decisions, this framework will help you navigate the challenges of modern life with greater ease. Avoiding pitfalls. Of course, no new approach comes without its challenges. One common pitfall is overcomplicating things. The framework is a tool, not a set of rigid rules. Don't be afraid to simplify or adjust the process depending on the decision at hand. Another challenge is disregarding intuition. While systematic analysis is essential, your gut instincts still play a crucial role. The key is to balance both. Use the framework as a guide, but don't ignore your internal compass. In the end, this smart decision framework gives you the tools to make more thoughtful, confident choices. By clearly defining the problem, gathering quality information, brainstorming creative solutions, and evaluating options systematically, you'll be better equipped to handle any decision that comes your way. The goal isn't perfection. It's about making the best decision possible and continuously improving the quality of your choices. But what about those moments when time is tight and there's no room for extensive analysis? In the next chapter, we'll explore how to make decisions quickly and effectively when the pressure is on. Ready to learn how to act decisively when every second counts. Chapter 8. Emergency Decision-Making. When every second counts. Imagine a moment when the clock is ticking down and the pressure is mounting. A decision you make in those few seconds could change everything. You've been there before, perhaps not in life or death situations, but in moments when the weight of a choice felt immense. So, how do we ensure we make the right call when every second counts? We all face times when quick decisions are necessary, but some situations demand a sharper, more practiced approach. This chapter dives deep into how we can prepare for high-stakes moments, those rare but critical instances when our decision-making is put to the ultimate test. Why is mastering emergency decision-making so important? In emergencies, a fast, effective decision can be the difference between success and failure, even life and death. But there's more at stake than just the immediate outcome. The way we handle high-pressure situations shapes our confidence, reputation, and future opportunities. And while these skills are essential in emergencies, the benefits stretch far beyond them. Developing the ability to think clearly and act decisively under pressure can improve our everyday decision-making too. The nature of high-pressure situations. What makes these moments so challenging? Time constraints, high stakes, incomplete or overwhelming information, and the need for coordination under stress all combine to create a perfect storm of pressure. In these situations, we face a tough balancing act. We can't afford to hesitate, but rushing in blindly can be disastrous. How do we make quick decisions without sacrificing accuracy? This is where emergency decision protocols come into play, offering us a framework for effective choices even when the stakes are highest. The role of naturalistic decision-making, NDM. At the core of emergency decision-making is the theory of naturalistic decision-making, NDM. Unlike traditional decision-making models, which emphasize careful analysis and comparison, NDM focuses on how we make decisions in the real world, especially when time is short, stakes are high, and conditions are uncertain. This approach highlights how experienced individuals use their knowledge and intuition to assess a situation and make effective choices quickly. But it's not just about gut feelings. It's about drawing from a rich base of experience and expertise to recognize patterns and act decisively. The power of experience. Consider the firefighter who can save lives in mere seconds. Their decisions are not random. They rely on years of experience that allow them to quickly recognize familiar patterns in chaotic situations. They don't stop to analyze every possible outcome. They act, using a mental toolbox built over time. But you don't have to be a seasoned expert to make these kinds of decisions. By understanding the principles of NDM and practicing effective decision protocols, anyone can improve their ability to handle high-pressure moments. Heuristics. Mental shortcuts in the heat of the moment. In high-stakes situations, we often rely on heuristics, mental shortcuts that allow us to make quick decisions with limited information. While these shortcuts can be life-saving, they come with risks. Over-reliance on heuristics can lead us to biased decisions or blind spots. For example, the recognition-primed decision model suggests that in emergencies, we typically rely on our past experiences to quickly identify familiar patterns. If a similar situation worked well before, we instinctively try the same approach. However, this model also warns us that this reliance can backfire if the current situation holds new elements we haven't encountered before. The importance of protocols. This is why having solid emergency protocols is so crucial. These structured guidelines help us make sound decisions, even when our intuition is clouded by stress or lack of information. Effective emergency protocols start with pre-planning, thinking through potential scenarios and preparing responses in advance. While we can't predict every emergency, a range of well-thought-out responses can help us react swiftly and effectively when the time comes. Clear, simple guidelines are also key. They need to be easy to recall under pressure, yet flexible enough to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. Even the best protocols won't help if we can't stay calm. So, stress management techniques, like deep breathing, mental rehearsal, and mindfulness, become essential tools. Regular practice of these methods helps keep us grounded in even the most chaotic environments. Communication, a lifeline in crisis. Effective communication is another cornerstone of emergency decision-making. In stressful moments, conveying information clearly is just as important as the decisions themselves. In emergencies, teams must coordinate quickly and efficiently. That means not only giving clear instructions, but also listening attentively and absorbing crucial information from others. Establishing communication protocols in advance helps ensure that, even under pressure, vital information flows seamlessly. Training, practice makes perfect. Emergency decision-making is a skill that develops over time. It isn't about a one-time training session, but continuous practice and simulations. By rehearsing high-pressure scenarios regularly, we build the mental stamina needed to perform well when real emergencies arise. After each simulation or drill, reflect on the experience, what worked, what didn't, and why. This kind of feedback loop is essential to improving decision-making under pressure. Role-playing realistic high-pressure scenarios is one effective way to practice. Simulations that mirror real-world emergencies, complete with time pressure and incomplete information, help hone your ability to think on your feet. Drills, too, allow you to practice making quick decisions in response to rapid-fire scenarios. The goal isn't to always find the perfect solution, but to cultivate the ability to make sound decisions with confidence. The outcomes: mastering emergency decision-making. The outcome of consistent practice is competence. As you become more skilled, you'll not only maintain composure in high-stress situations, but you'll also develop leadership skills. you'll be able to guide others calmly, fostering an atmosphere of purposeful action in emergencies. The ultimate goal? Mastery. This means applying emergency decision-making principles fluidly across a wide range of situations. It doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes or feel stress, but it means you'll be better equipped to handle it and make thoughtful decisions on the spot. Overcoming challenges. As you progress, you may encounter challenges. One common issue is the tendency to freeze under pressure, especially when faced with an unfamiliar situation. The best antidote is regular exposure to high-pressure scenarios. The more you practice, the less likely you are to freeze when it really matters. Another pitfall is overconfidence, becoming so comfortable with your decision-making that you overlook crucial details. The solution? A commitment to continuous learning, feedback, and refinement of your skills. Conclusion: preparing for the unexpected. In the end, we can't control when emergencies will arise, but we can certainly control how prepared we are. By embracing the principles of naturalistic decision-making, developing protocols, practicing stress management, and committing to ongoing training, we can sharpen our ability to make effective decisions under pressure. And remember, the goal isn't to eliminate stress or uncertainty. That's inevitable. Instead, it's about building the skills and mindset to navigate these challenges with clarity and decisiveness. Looking ahead, the next chapter will take us deeper into decision-making, zooming out to explore how our individual choices fit into the bigger picture of personal growth and strategy. How can we ensure each decision isn't just a reaction to the moment, but part of an ongoing journey toward better choices and continuous improvement? Stay tuned, because what comes next could change the way you approach not just emergencies, but life itself. Are you ready to elevate your decision-making to the next level? Chapter 9. Beyond Smart, your critical thinking action plan. As we wrap up this exploration of smart decision-making, let's shift our focus to something crucial: action. You've gained valuable insights into critical thinking, understood the pitfalls that often trip us up, and learned strategies to enhance your decision-making skills. But now, how do you take all this knowledge and transform it into real, lasting change in your life? This chapter is about turning knowledge into action, applying the concepts we've explored to create a lasting shift in how you approach decisions, both big and small. What you've learned is powerful. You now have the tools to improve self-awareness and decision-making confidence. Complex decisions that once felt overwhelming can now be tackled with greater ease. You've learned to spot cognitive biases, avoid thinking traps, and apply structured frameworks to guide your choices. But these skills don't just affect your decisions, they can also improve your relationships. By better understanding the way people make decisions, you'll be able to communicate more clearly, empathize with others, and resolve conflicts more effectively. Take a moment and think about your capabilities now. What once seemed out of reach is now within your grasp. You can spot the critical thinking mistakes you might have made in the past, and with your new tools, you can break down complex decisions into manageable parts. These aren't small achievements. They mark a significant leap in your cognitive abilities. As you practice what you've learned, your decision-making will become more intuitive and less reliant on conscious effort. What used to require careful thought will soon feel automatic. You'll develop habits of critical thinking that make you quicker, more efficient, and more effective in every decision you make. But let's not forget, this is an ongoing journey. The challenges we discussed, emotional decision-making, groupthink, and other biases, are persistent. They require constant attention. This is why continued development is so important. Every decision is an opportunity to refine your skills and deepen your understanding. To truly take full advantage of what you've learned, you need to evaluate where you stand right now. How are you making decisions today? What went well? Where did you stumble? This reflection is the first step in building a personal growth plan. Think about your goals for improvement. These should be specific, measurable, and aligned with your personal and professional aspirations. Maybe you want to make better decisions under pressure, or perhaps you want to improve how you facilitate group decisions. Whatever it is, make sure it's something you can track and measure. Developing a critical thinking toolkit is another essential step. Your toolkit should include the decision-making frameworks and strategies you've learned, but it should evolve as you encounter new challenges. It's a living resource that grows with you. Incorporating these new tools into your daily life is where the real work happens. You can't just know about these concepts. You have to practice them regularly. Whether it's setting aside time for reflective thinking, using mindfulness to stay emotionally aware, or regularly questioning your assumptions, the key is consistency. Start building habits that support your new way of thinking. But don't do this alone. Seek feedback from others. Mentors, colleagues, friends, anyone who can offer a different perspective on your decision-making process can help you see what you might be missing. This external input is invaluable in helping you refine your approach. You will face challenges along the way, obstacles that test your patience, motivation, and resilience. But instead of seeing these as setbacks, view them as opportunities for growth. When progress feels slow, remind yourself that persistence is the key to success. Stay committed and celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Recognizing your progress keeps you motivated. As we finish this book, remember, learning is a lifelong journey. Decision science is constantly evolving, with new insights and strategies emerging all the time. Stay curious, stay open, and keep improving. The impact of good decisions stretches far beyond just the immediate outcome. It shapes the future you're building. By honing your decision-making skills, you're not only improving yourself, you're transforming your future. And here's the empowering truth. As your decision-making and critical thinking skills grow, so does your ability to shape your life and influence the world around you. You'll not just be making smart decisions, you'll become a visionary. Someone who sees possibilities where others see obstacles. Someone who navigates complexity with confidence. This is the ultimate payoff of everything you've learned. It's not just about making better decisions. It's about unlocking your potential to create the life you want and make a positive impact on the world. Every decision you make affects more than just your life. It affects those around you. Your choices can inspire others, solve problems, and create opportunities. As you close this book, remember, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where you apply what you've learned and continue to grow as a critical thinker, building the life you envision, one decision at a time.